Hello, I'm Deborah Malone, founder of The Internationalist and host of Internationalist Marketing TV. Today's guest is Anthony Farina, Chief Corporate Communications and Brand Officer at the FujiFilm Corporation. Anthony, it is always a pleasure to have a conversation with someone that you've known and you've seen grow and change and talk about grow and change. This conversation is really going to be one about transformation. So welcome to the show, Anthony.
Thank you so much, Deborah. When you reached out, I put this on my calendar and I circled it with a red line, and I am looking forward to continuing to engage with my dear friend Deborah and all your followers. You've built such a wonderful organization and followership, and I'm happy to, share some thoughts. So thanks for having me.
Oh, I really appreciate that. And well, I did talk about transformation. So let's just start with the
Hmm.
fact that you have been through some extraordinary transformations. Now, they've been for different companies, obviously, different types of companies. But what excited you personally about Fujifilm at this moment in its evolution?
It's really interesting because one of the great things about what we do in our occupations is we can pick and choose where we want to work. And I'm at a point in my career where I've always been selective, but I'm been really selective. But to me, when Fujifilm reached out to me and I looked at it, there was this incredible inflection point, really what I would say a tipping point where, the world knows this iconic brand in terms of how it has really contributed to the better of society. But the overall story has not been told. And when I looked at it a little bit more, it was really, helping to take Fujifilm to the next 100 years. And we can get more into uh, uh, the pieces of it. But what I saw was Fujifilm took courage and vision to transform. And when I'm reflecting on what I've done in the last 25 years, DuPont, repositioning the company from a chemical company to a science company, CSL going from the largest company no one has ever heard of to the fastest growing brand for 3 straight years, top biotech for, top three biotech is et cetera. To me, this was the continuation of what I would call that trifecta. And that is to be able to leverage what we learned and apply it to this incredibly iconic brands. And I know we'll get into more of the specifics, but I'm never about maintenance. Like I'm not that. It's about how do I contribute what I've been doing for, 40 years, and to be able to help contribute to the betterment. And this is a great fit.
It's extraordinary. You've used iconic, an iconic brand, and I would think that most people think of Fujifilm, obviously, as the name implies, as a film company. You're talking now about the next 100 years,
Hmm.
and this could be one of the most fascinating transformation stories of our time, from imaging to healthcare,
Mhm.
life sciences, advanced materials. I mean, so from a communication standpoint, what's the hardest part of telling a diversification story like this without confusing people or losing that initial iconic
Ex-
feel?
ex-
That's hard.
it's hard, but it's one of those things where do you accept the challenge or do you accept the opportunities? And I see both. And to me, the diversification of Fujifilm is what really attracted me. So the one phrase that I use with friends when they ask, well, why did you leave biopharma? And I said, well, I didn't. And the fact is, the one phrase that I use from film to pharma. And there's that pregnant pause, and people say, well, tell me more. So the diversification, I'm like a kid in the candy shop. I love to tell the story about how Fujifilm is applying its purpose. And to me, that's the red thread that keeps all these businesses, whether it's from healthcare or imaging, biomanufacturing, advanced cell therapy. The diversification is so unique. And in the US, there's been a lot of changes with large corporations where they've been broken up and those kind of things. Fujifilm continues to add value to the world in a lot of different ways, but it has transformed itself along the way too, going again from film over to pharma, and it fits perfectly. And when I was looking at this, that's when I had the aha moment. I'm like, this is where we can provide real value on communications and marketing to help take that transformation story and tell it for the next 100 years. So I'm really excited to be part of it, and we're off and running.
You certainly sound excited. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Let me. I have.
I'm never short of enthusiasm or passion, Deborah, as you know.
So sometimes I think that's all it takes to champion a brand. If you don't have that, you're not going to go anywhere. But let me just ask you something structurally, and then
Hmm.
you talked about purpose as being the red thread, and I really want to delve there because we have a long history of that together in
Mm,
exploring what purpose means.
right,
Um, okay, you now oversee communications across, what is it, 20 group companies operating as a shared service. I mean,
hmm,
talk about balancing, consistency and relevance with each business. So each is seen, but each brand shows up as one Fujifilm. And again, Fujifilm, you're going to keep that name, I'm assuming.
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, that red thread is what connects us around giving the world more smiles. And when you think about our purpose, it does acknowledge the legacy, right, of imaging, film, giving the world more smiles, but it also talks about our growth. So, what is more important than saving lives, than advancing therapies that makes the world a better place to live, people's personal health with imaging? So it all brings it all together under this wonderful red thread that we've had that keeps it all together. Now, at the end of the day, we still have to deliver on our promise to shareholders, employees, and other external stakeholders. And, the company has really performed well, but the best is yet to come. There's no question about that, particularly at the early, what I would call the embryonic phases of our life sciences. Like we're just right on the dawn of all of this, and we've had some wonderful wins, but the best is yet to come. So when you think about all of it, that red thread is our purpose of why we exist. And we can talk about purpose washing. And I've been very vocal around purpose washing. But here at Fujifilm, our purpose is very authentic, and I'm happy to do a deep dive
Let's
into that.
go to that right now. I
Mm,
wanted to, and don't let me forget, I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about innovation. But before,
mm,
let's go to purpose, and they're
yeah,
very much aligned. So why not? I mean, you mentioned that the red thread may be giving our world more smiles. But I think just in terms of what you said about purpose washing, I think you acknowledge that purpose has evolved somewhat,
right,
whether it's because it's a loaded word or whether we have moved from what I like to say from promises to participation, or
right.
maybe we'll also find another P that might even sound better. But we were working on this when you were at CSL at
Yeah,
the very beginning. You talk about embryonic. We were really trying to
yeah,
figure it out, and you did such a marvelous job, particularly when your purpose at CSL was designed around patients.
right.
And now, yeah, so let's just go through, what does purpose mean at
Yeah,
Fujifilm?
yeah,
And how then do you make it real for
yeah,
not only the employees, but
yeah.
everybody outside?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I knew you and I were going to talk about purpose, and I've been reflecting on this, and it's just been a wonderful journey because back in 2015, so we're talking 11 years ago,
Mhm.
at CSL, we ditched the vision, we ditched the mission, And we had this wonderful leader, CEO Paul Perot, who's one of the best men, not alone leader I've ever worked with, let alone know. And he said, "This is why we exist," right? And we did this 11 years ago before all this purpose stuff came on. And so we're at the forefront of that, really worked in there. And like you mentioned, it's very clear what CSL was about at the time, being patient focused. But as you go along over the last 11 years, you start to see this, gravitation and a lot of energy. And it's not unlike sustainability was in 20 years ago, right? So, everyone jumped on the sustainability wagon. You had greenwashing, you had a lot of back. And I think we saw some of that on the purpose piece of it too. And so I always go back to three things around a purpose. And I like to think like we've been working on this for a long time and went through it a lot, both at CSL and now at Fujifilm. One, purpose is not a campaign. It's your reason for being. It's why you exist. It's the societal value that an organization provides. Secondly, it has to be anchored to the business strategy. And so when you hear about, oh, well, we're going to have this purpose campaign and off we go, and like this is this is how you add value and how you deliver for your shareholders, your stakeholders, the society overall. And then thirdly, and this is where it comes on the marketing and communication side, is our role is to be able to amplify in a really engaging way the storytelling. And the great thing at Fujifilm is we have this purpose in place. We've been around for 92 plus years now, and there's wonderful examples of storytelling, whether it's in advanced therapy, whether it's in imaging, where we're bringing the world more smiles. And it starts at the top. Our CEO, who I've been able to really engage with a fair amount over my first year at Fujifilm, he truly is an authentic leader on this front. And so you can call it what you want. I think it kind of ebbs and flows. But the great thing is Fujifilm is very, very well positioned to execute its purpose and has done for 92 years and really well positioned to kind of transform and take it to the next, 92 years, 100 years.
Yeah, well, and I hope that you're with them that long.
I don't know about that, Deborah.
No, no, no. But I think what's you and the interesting theme you have here is you've always been with companies that have been around for a long time. That
Right.
all of them reached the century mark, or or past it, or getting close to it. And I think that's fascinating because those are the companies that stay around because they are able to transform. Now, I think you make some very good points. And I think that I think what we've discovered, you and I, is that if purpose is simply messaging,
Mm,
it means nothing. And
yeah.
that's where I think all of that purpose washing and the bad rap started to happen. It's got to be doable. It's got to be action oriented. And you also, I remember, you also said something a while ago that communications earns its seat at the table when it drives measurable outcomes.
Right.
So that can relate to purpose. It can relate to
Mm.
a lot of things. So I'm just curious, what does that mean to, at Fujifilm? Do you know what those outcomes should be, or are they always economic? You talk about societal value and how that's not only a reason for being, but probably a differentiator. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's a great question. It's kind of really interesting. So in April, it'll be a year here
mhm.
at Fujifilm, and in reflecting on it, what I would say is clarity, right? So it's clarity of what does success look like. And so one of the things when I joined was really three things. I'm a guy who does things in threes. I don't know for whatever reason, but it's all about threes. So First, what's the business strategy? And how are you contributing to that? Secondly, in that strategy, how's the communications or marketing strategy lined up with that business strategy, right? Secondly, is how does the voice of the business, how is it being heard in what you're trying to achieve here? And so many times, you hear, whether it's marketing people or communication leaders, oh, they just don't understand us and, they just don't get us. Well, the burden is upon us as leaders in marketing or communications to ensure that the voice of the business, how do you grow? What are the objectives? Is reflective in everything that we do. And then the third piece is culture. And so I mentioned a little bit earlier this trifecta being the DuPont, CSL, now at Fujifilm. And while all of them are different, we all have to be able to make sure that the culture of how we're going about doing this work, whether it's maintaining and keeping things that are really important to the culture, and then determining, what could be changed, where there's opportunity. So you put it all together between the strategy, the voice of the business, and the culture. That's how we kind of go about to, measure what we do, and then take the analytics there and take it to the next level. But it's all this formula. What I would say that three formula to make sure that whatever we do is measured and it goes against what the objectives are, and we're analyzing it, and then we take the data, adjust. Maybe we continue as is. Maybe we make some changes and those kind of things. But it's like a 360 loop, Deborah. It's all part of from beginning to end and keep it going.
You said something now that just really struck me. And you know how every so often you hear these phrases or you hear someone genuinely say something and it just opens your eyes for a minute. You talked about the voice of the business.
Hmm.
And that I think is something that people forget, because there was, if you want to talk about all these different, purposeful and sustainability slogans that were out there, for a while there was something called the green hush. And if you heard me, the green hush, and that was because some people felt that they were doing so well in terms of their sustainable, purpose-driven stuff that they were so afraid of backlash that they didn't talk about it.
Oh,
And the voice of the business that is just resonating me in such a way because it's not only the voice of the business within the organization. You are actually measured by how your business voice resonates in the
right.
outside world. And that's how you are perceived. And I think that you've said it so clearly, and most people forget that is the major role of marketing communications. Well,
Yeah.
look, I promised a question on innovation, so let me just ask you before it goes out of my mind
Sure.
entirely. Fujifilm talks about value from innovation. I think that's very exciting, but how do you translate again as voice of the business, perhaps, an idea into something that employees and even external stakeholders actually recognize in daily decisions? Is that
Yeah.
through storytelling? Is that
Well,
how, yeah,
to me, this is why you develop a communication strategy. And, I talked about this a little bit earlier. I'm still surprised where some organizations just do the work without a North Star, a strategy that lines up with the business and those kind of things. And I'm really, really pleased that we develop a strategy here for Fujifilm in the Americas to do exactly that. And that is to articulate how Fujifilm provides innovation, the value that we provide, amplifying our purpose, and all those kind of things. Because without a strategy, you're just moping along and just kind of doing it, and there's really no purpose, there's no focus, there's priorities, people have opinions. The great thing about having a strategy is there is a roadmap, You can align the team, you can empower the team. Your businesses understand what you do and what you don't do, and those kind of things. So I just go back to that, the importance of having a strategy to be able to socialize it, ensure the voice of the business is heard, continue to do this because once you have a strategy, it continues to evolve, things change. We live in a very dynamic world. And that's what I love to do. And so I was really, really excited to introduce our strategy, in this first year. And now we're, bringing it to life.
And that's even more fun. I just have a quick question as an international person who did spend a lot of time in Japan for many decades.
Mm,
You have worked for a US company, an Australia-based
yep.
company, and now a Japanese-based company. And they're all big global organizations. Is there really much of a difference, do you think?
That's really interesting. There isn't, and it goes back to a couple things, and not to get too personal, but it also reflects on how I go about my life, and that is the golden rule, right? Treat people how they want to be treated. That's universal. It's global. Secondly, I think this wonderful skill set that we have, these two things between our on our head are underutilized. And so listen to learn, listen to understand, not listen to respond. And that's a global piece. And then the third piece is live to learn. Every day I wake up trying to learn something new. And if you have those kind of habits, like everything else works really well. And what I've seen, I've been doing this for a number of years, as you mentioned, different companies, is you'll have people join a new organization. They'll say, well, I know it's best. But if you're not learning, if you don't accept the culture, if you're not engaging, you're going to fail. And I think we've been able to be successful, whether it's at DuPont in the Americas, CSL, Australian base, or Japan. All those kind of three things really do resonate in terms of the golden rule, listening and then living to learn. Like that has served me pretty well.
Those are that's the inspirational threesome for today of your various threesomes.
All right, let's finish. I'm gone. All right, good night,
All
everyone.
right. All right. No, well, listen. Okay, so let's do another three. All
Sure.
right. Now, if we were to have this conversation again in 3 years,
Yeah.
what would you hope people would say about Fujifilm?
Yeah.
Not just as a company, but maybe even as a corporate citizen.
Yeah, I think in reflection of the diversification of the business, where the life sciences business is going, and it's the company's it's at the dawn of its 100th anniversary here shortly. What I would say is, I would love for people to think about Fujifilm as, giving the world more smiles as a technical powerhouse for the first 100 years and the next 100 years. Like it really goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, that inflection point where I saw, this company invested $10 billion into life sciences, and we have these wonderful facilities around the world that are incredible. And it took courage and vision, at the cusp of this century to go from film as things change into life sciences and to be able to leverage imaging into healthcare and to continue to do those kind of things. But at the end of the day, recognizing the legacy of giving the world more smiles through imaging, healthcare, pharma, and those kind of things, like it's really cool to be able to contribute to that. And that's why I'm here. So like that's what we're trying to do is help position the company for the next 100 years. And like that's why I decided to join. I believe we can really contribute to the repositioning of the company in the largest market that it has here in the Americas.
Well, I think that might be maybe a natural place to pause, given that obviously we have to have you back in 6 months, so you can tell us how the progress is going. But it's always an inspiration to talk to you. It's always wonderful just to hear the freshness of your ideas and how rooted they are kind of in both heart and head, and that's absolutely wonderful. So we're going to be watching, and we're also going to be learning from you, because if anybody can help a company transform and also figure out a way to communicate that, it's you. So you'll be on our radar every day.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you, Deborah. It was such a pleasure to catch up with you. We're just beginning. More to come on that front, and I'm happy to be back, but it's always such a joy to see you, my dear friend.
Oh, you're wonderful. Thank you so much, and to be continued.
Absolutely.
The Internationalist focuses on the continual reinvention of marketing by highlighting inspirational marketers around the world and their ideas as they move the industry forward. Internationalist Marketing TV shares these perspectives through interviews and personal stories. Thanks so much for watching. If you find this kind of content helpful, please click like or subscribe. Again, thanks so much.